And you just are being notified that this webinar is being recorded. First, I want to start with the tribal land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge the Indigenous people who have stewarded this land since time immemorial and who still inhabit the area today. Today, I'm coming to you from the Indigenous people of the Squally-Apsh or Nisqually tribe. If you'd like to recognize or acknowledge the tribal lands, ancestral lands that you are coming from today, you can enter that into the chat, but you don't have to do so. Again, it's Lisa Ireland, Data Analyst with the Student Information Department. Let's see, we have a question on. Oh, I keep cutting out. I will try and speak up. And is that a little better? Is my volume coming through okay? Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Okay, we will do our best to keep going. Look at all those thumbs up on the screen. That's wonderful. Can't appreciate everybody being here today. Today, we're going to talk about free and reduced price meal data and CEDARS. Then when we're done reviewing that information, we're also going to look at other reports in CEDARS, reviewing data for end of year reporting and other uses, such as we just published on Report Card, and give some tips and tricks on how to dive into the data. We decided to focus on both of these subjects today because we've been getting a lot of questions and there's some upcoming data uses. And again, as I mentioned, there'll be plenty of time for questions and wrap up. So before we launch into the free and reduced price meal data in CEDARS, I do want to mention that the focus I am speaking to is the requirements for reporting this data to CEDARS, assisting you in looking at the data and ensuring data accuracy. I am not coming to you as an expert for the child nutrition program. We are hoping one of the staff might be present. Liz Beechler, the director of child nutrition, might be available if there's any specific questions on, accessing or billing or things like that. So please know I am not trying to instruct folks on managing their child nutrition component or speaking to, technical or fiscal requirements for the child nutrition side. I'm speaking to the data side, how the information comes into CEDARS, and the importance of this data. So starting out, and for some of you that have been around a while like I have, we know all these rules, but we have a lot of new folks in the districts. And we also hear that you're going to bring some of the folks that you partner with that are responsible for this data. So districts are required to determine for all students their eligibility for free and reduced price meals. And if the student is eligible, the data must be submitted to CEDARS. It's really important to remember we're talking about eligibility, not if you're actually providing a meal or meals to students. And eligibility must be determined regardless of whether or not the district has the ability or opportunity to feed their students. And we'll take a pause. A lot of times, districts go, what do you mean? We actually have a couple districts that don't have a meal program. We have some public schools that, while they're LEA or district, may have a meal program. We have online schools, ALE schools or programs. We have students participating full-time in Running Start, Skill Center, part-time students. You start thinking about this population of students, and the majority of districts have some. We include all of these students in our free or reduced meal eligibility calculations, which is our proxy for low income or poverty data. So we really want to help you get the information into us so we can see the full picture of your students and how it affects your schools and districts. We talked about OSPI utilizes free and reduced price meal eligibility as a proxy or indicator of poverty. We use this data for federal and state mandated reporting. It's populated to the OSPI report card. It's learning assistance program eligibility. And I'll take a pause on this in just a moment. It's also used to determine national board certified teacher bonuses and guidance counselors enhancement funding. And it's also included when we provide student group breakouts in end of year applications, dashboards, and multiple other data uses. Sometimes we forget the numerous places we use the data. We use this to complete data that goes to the Education Research Data Center and to fulfill data sharing requests. And when I say that, I want to assure everybody, if this data is ever used to fulfill data sharing requests or shared with outside entities, we do not share identifiable data. So one of the cautions that we'll come back to is determining if or how a student is eligible when it's appropriate to do so, but we'll touch base on this in just a moment. There's multiple ways you can determine eligibility for students, and districts kind of need to look at this with a different lens. And again, as I speak to, I'm not the child nutrition expert. Again, I'm speaking of to how the data comes into CEDARS. We have students determined as eligible through direct certification. That's the process of identifying students who are eligible because their household receives assistance or is identified as receiving services through qualifying program through DSHS or the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services. OSPI has a secure agreement with DSHS. It's an electronic automated service that districts can log into to determine if any of their students are identified as direct certified. There's multiple ways students can be on this list. If a student is identified as direct certified or direct eligible in your district, you capture this information. There's also students that would be considered categorically eligible. And this was interesting for me when I was reading into some of this information. Categorically eligible means a student that's identified for free meal participation would be a student that's homeless or receiving services through McKinney-Vento. Those names are synonymous with each other. Identified as being in foster care, or students have been residents of a residential child care institution. Folks go, what do you mean? For instance, if a student is currently enrolled in a public school through a juvenile detention center, a group home, long-term institution, which would be things such as Green Hill and Chehalis, Echo Glen. There's a lot of different facilities around Washington. Those students are automatically eligible for free meals. What's important to note, and sometimes this information doesn't carry on, if a student enrolls in a public school that's not in an RCCI, and they come to you, we'll say a student was in one of these facilities and comes and enrolls in your district, one of your schools, and wants to maintain that eligibility through the reporting school year, that is allowed. It doesn't matter if the student would not be identified as any other means of being eligible, but if they've been in an RCCI and ask you to maintain that free meal status, that stays for the entire year. The only, however, it's the student has to have been enrolled for a minimum of 24 hours. Sometimes we see students that become involved in the juvenile system. They're in and out in a few hours. Those students would not qualify. And also, categorically eligible students are those participating in Head Start or early childhood. So if you're submitting those students to us as pre-K students, they would also be recognized as eligible. So the next part would be, you have students that are not identified as directly certified or categorically eligible, but you have the opportunity to provide meals, so they have access to their school's meal program. You would ask the family to complete a family meal application. Schools are tasked with reviewing submitted meal applications and using that data, determining if the student is eligible to receive the free or reduced price meals. And I'm going to take a pause. One slide I don't have on here that we can talk about later if you want is students identified as eligible in a previous school year. They automatically have a 30 serving day carryover eligibility into the new school year. And we can touch base on that later if folks have questions. That means if a student was identified through any of the means we spoke to earlier, or the next one we're going to speak about, that eligibility carries through to the first 30 school days in the new school year, allowing your school to re-verify this information or eligibility for the new school year. Then we'll go to the family income survey. This is the one where we get lots and lots of questions. So we've already talked about the students. You have the district or someone in your district that's tasked with working with your child nutrition program has access to the direct certified information, categorically eligible information, or meal application. Again, if the students are present and have access to meals and aren't identified in the first two categories. If you've gone through that group and say, well, now we need to look at the information for all other students. If your school doesn't have a meal program, it's a meal program, student does have access, we spoke to that. Or if your school or district participates in a community eligibility provision or provision 2 program, or they're identified as eligible. This is a big step for a lot of districts. Last year in the summer, prior to the start of the 22-23 school year, there was a great opportunity for districts that were above a specific free or reduced meal rate, or excuse me, low income rate, to be recognized as a CEP district, which means you would receive funds to feed 100% of your students, which we think is awesome. We love to see that playing field per se leveled and everybody getting fed. However, just because you have funds, you're receiving CEP funds or Provision 2 funds to feed all students in your school or your district as a whole, we still need to receive that eligibility. It's if you had to determine if they were eligible to be fed, would they be eligible? Again, you would look to your direct certified or categorically eligible students. And if they were not identified in one of those means, the family income survey would be the tool you would use to determine if they had to apply, would they be eligible? One of the things we ask districts to think about is, should you send the family income survey to all students with a letter indicating if your family is identified as, because we don't want to out any of our kids. You would communicate, and I'll provide some links later on to these resources. Send the family income survey to everybody and just say, if your student is already eligible through other means, direct certified, etc., you do not have to return this document. So I'm going to pause right here and see, do we have any questions, or should we keep going? I don't see anything. The bulletin that spoke to the CEP eligibility for last year was bulletin B036-22. Again, I'll repeat that if anybody wants to look at that bulletin. B036-22. So Heather, no, that's a great question. Chast, are we not supposed to collect family income surveys from direct certified families? We would encourage you to send home that family income survey to all students, or use it as your, collect that information when you're re-verifying information for all students at the start of the school year. But if a family is direct certified, you would submit that information to CEDARS that the students identified as direct certified, and only use the family income survey for those students that are either not direct certified or categorically eligible. Okay, and someone just raised their hand. Leilani, who's working with us, I apologize. I should have introduced Leilani. Tyler is helping drive things behind the scenes. She's the power behind the scenes. Do we have the ability to unmute that person who raised their hand?
Yeah, Lisa, his name is Adam Passer. I'm going to go ahead and allow him to talk.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Adam. You should be unmuted now and able to talk.
Sorry, I think I just clicked the wrong thing. I'm fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So data for students identified as eligible for free or reduced price meals is captured in your district student information system. Again, I'm not the expert on your child nutrition component, but I can tell you the data once captured in your student information system, or SIS, they're synonymous with each other, comes into CEDARS attributes and programs file I. And again, I'll have links. There's a link here for CEDARS. We'll provide them later. It comes into element IO6 attribute or program code. It's valid value 19 free or reduced price meal eligible. This information about this valid value and a descriptor is found in CEDARS Appendix F. If later on you want to look, especially for the new folks, if you click on this CEDARS link, it will take you to the data manual, the appendices, and the reporting guidance. Within the reporting guidance is very robust information about this data collection. Once you've provided the information that a student is identified in one of the means that we have as eligible for free reduced price meals, we also collect how were they eligible. There's qualification codes listed in Appendix X, free or reduced price meals, eligibility status, or low income, that tells us how you've determined that student's eligible. There's codes that tell us the student's direct certified through specific means, eligible through McKinney Vento homeless, etc. Or we also have a valid value, I believe it's 25 or 26, 25, that says student is determined eligible through the family income survey. Yes, Kay, the family income survey it's online right now. You certainly could use it to go out with enrollment forms so parents complete them all at the same time. That's a great question. And actually, we heard from a district earlier today that that's how they do this. So they are not, again, drawing out any students. You would never want to identify students as being direct cert eligible or anything like that. So that would be a wonderful way to collect that. Again, I see somebody put something in the chat. If it's a question, if you could move that to the Q&A, that would be wonderful. Otherwise, we can try and check that in a little while. Okay, looks like we're doing good. So we will move on. So data submitted to CEDARS can be viewed in the Students tab, because now you're giving us all this information. A lot of times we hear all this data goes to CEDARS. We know we put it in our student information system. And for those of you that may not be real active in CEDARS, if we've got program folks attending with their CEDARS district admins today, you enter all this information, and sometimes it's hard to understand the full amount of data that comes in, but we do give you access to this data to be viewed. You can see the information either in the Students tab, individual student by individual student. You can enter the student's SSID, district ID, partial name. I really like this feature. You can also select an individual school year and specific school or district. And unless you want to see the full information for kids' total enrollment history through CEDARS, you would click on the records you want to view. And within the data, you'll click on attributes and programs. I'm going to show you some snapshots in just a minute. The other way is to create a report that allows you to see all students submitted year to date is being eligible for free or reduced price meals and the code used to submit them, the start dates, exit dates, etc. And that's another important piece. And let me take a pause. Is once a student is identified as eligible, regardless of how they're determined eligible, that eligibility stays with the student through the remainder of the school year. You may get updated information about the family's status, but we'll still recognize them and include them in our records. So again, under reports, it's attributes and programs, which a slide ago I mentioned, it comes into attributes and programs, shared you with the elements that the information comes in. You can select again the organization to view, either district or school. You drop down to that attribute or program, that 19 that just says you told us the student was eligible, and then select student details. You can select summary It just gives you a count. Not very helpful. So let me go here. I'm going to hang on here. So I just spoke to first going into the Students tab. If you have access to CEDARS, which is accessed through the secure EDS or Education Data System login. Each district assigns specific people the roles to allow them to access this data. I spoke to you going as a student, you enter either their SSID or district ID. The important thing to know is you don't have to enter all of this information. You can just enter, again, partial name. If it was for me, instead of Lisa Ireland, you could type in LI, then IRE. And if you wanted to, you could select the specific school year, and that would return students that match, that started with the, LI and the IRE. I guess it's a feature for me when I get tired of typing things out fully, goes in there. Once you click on, so student records, once you click on it, let me go back a slide. Once you enter data below this screen, there's a search button, the number of records presented, you select the one you want, you click on it, and then it takes you to this screen. It will default to the student information screen, which provides a host of information, including date of birth, race, ethnicity, the resident serving district, their district enrollment, and if the student has moved schools during the current reporting school year or exited and come back, it will show all the school information. You can click on students who have a schedule, you can see all these different pieces of information. If you want to review what's being submitted for the student for free and reduced price meal eligibility, you'd click on attributes and programs and navigate down the screen till you see the information for this student. If you notice up in the right-hand corner, there's a school year. You can select any of the school years back to the initial school year of 2009-10, in which we began receiving data for students in CEDARS. So sometimes this is very handy when you're trying to look at what changed, what story changed about a student. The other report I spoke to was under reports. If you click on reports, this menu down here drops down. So you don't see this when you're first in there. You click on reports, you go to attributes and programs, and it defaults to dynamic attribute and program. It currently defaults to the current reporting school year. You can select prior school years, just like in the student screen. Again, you can select an individual, you can select your district or a school within your district. Drill down in here, what shows first is valid value number 1, which I believe is 21st Century Community Learning Center. But click on the arrow, there'll be an arrow on the right-hand side, and drop down to 19. I always recommend that you click on unduplicated no and student details, as that will allow you to see the full picture. And some folks, what do you mean unduplicated? The majority of students in your schools, we expect for you to report as is primary yes. It would be very infrequent when you would submit a student as his primary no. We could talk about that for an hour or two, but we won't. But we want you to get the full picture of all your students. That's why I always recommend that you click on this. So it'll give you both the primary yes and no, student details, and then click on search. So presented in this report are these fields here, right? So it'll tell you that school name, first name, all this information, exit reason or qualification. Now I'm going to take a pause here. I often get inquiries from folks going, hey, we submitted student A as eligible for free reduced price meals or in Title I or lap math or special education. I'm not seeing their record. If you ever need to reach out to any of us with questions, please make sure you only send either the SSID or the student's name and their school. We want to make sure, and especially with secure information such as free reduced price meal data, any students with disabilities, anything like that, we want to be very, very careful to protect their FERPA rights. So again, this is, homage to the new folks that, may not have that information yet. We're very careful about that. Okay, and do we have a new question? Okay, this is great. So Kay said the family income survey currently available is only for the 2022-23 school year and good through June 30th. If we send that in spring, won't they have to fill it out again? So Kay, that's a great question. And I don't know if Liz was able to join us. So Liz Beechler was going to try and join us. If she does, I don't know if she's here yet or not.
Lisa, I don't see her in the attendee list.
Okay, so Kay, can I ask you to send that to me in an email, and we'll also capture it here. And what we'll do is look to make sure that's going to get updated. We can get that information sent out and hopefully do a Simon article also letting folks know when that's available. So thank you so much. Okay, we see some other questions. We will take just a pause here. So Kendrick says they have our family income survey completed. Which CEDARS entry do we need? So in your student information system, depending on which system you use, you can probably reach out to your vendor support team as to how to create a record in your SIS for that student, indicating their eligibility, how they're determined eligible, and their start date. And in your next CEDARS submission, that data will get loaded to CEDARS. And after it's successfully loaded, you can then see it in this report that we're talking about. I believe that answers the question. And Karen says, yes, they do have to fill them out every year, so they qualify. But again, as Kay asked, can you send it out in the registration packets or the, hey, verify your address and your emergency contact and all that information? That would be appropriate to send it out there. But yes, the family income survey is an annual survey. Unfortunately, it can't just be a one-time and the remainder of the time the students in your district. It is an annual verification. Okay, I'm trying to see if we have any other questions. Bear with me. Okay, whoops, we say, okay. Right, and I believe in your student information system, Kendrick, it might be in other WAP programs for your students in the student profile, other WAP programs, but that's about the depth of my knowledge for Skyward. But I would encourage you to reach out to your ESD vendor support team. They will assist you in identifying where. And I'm glad you are here today and listening for this information, because we have some important uses of this data coming up. We really want your students and your school and district as a whole to be represented accurately. So the next one I'm going to go to is the high poverty report. So we get all this information in from our districts. And when I say districts or LEAs, let me take a pause. We're recognizing that we have over 300 entities operating as school districts in Washington. That's what we call our standard school district, is what folks most think of it. We have charter districts. We have state tribal education compacts, or STECs, that are also school districts. And we have ESDs that are also operating as a school district with public schools. So we are getting information for lots of students through lots of means. Students enrolled in juvenile justice schools and institutional facilities, those are also included by the LEA or district that acts as the parent for those schools. So using that information, we populate it at the end of March to the high poverty report. Our deadline for submitting accurate, complete data to CEDARS to be populated to this high poverty report is March 31st. This is a really important deadline, because if you are not a CEP school, it's used to determine district learning assistance LAP funding, high poverty LAP funding, guidance counselors enhancement funding, and also for national board certified teacher bonuses. There's a certain percentage you have to be at to qualify for that high poverty. So if you are a CEP model program, a school or your district as a whole, I would check with your LAP office to determine if your funding will be determined using the high poverty, or if you get to continue the funding model set up for you. I know there's some rules for the CEP, so check with your LAP office. But again, as a reminder, we use this income, this low income or proxy or free reduced meal eligibility data as a proxy for low income or poverty. While the high poverty report is vital for funding for a lot of folks from many different areas, it's also really important when we represent your school or district in our legislative reports and our federal reports. We do well over 100 federal reports every year. We do legislative requests. It goes to the Education Research Data Center. And again, we want this information shared out and as accurate as possible. So where do you view the high poverty report? Well, under reports, again, I said when you click here, it drops down. You go to state and federal, and there's the high poverty schools annual report. Again, it defaults to the 22-23 school year. You can view it for your district as a whole or individual schools. I recommend you leave the as of date where it's at. And you can select any number of options here and click on search. The business rules used to create this report are listed below the search button. Yes, Susan, that's a great question. So Susan asked, don't we publish it for folks to view? So your timing's perfect because right now I'm going right here. I mentioned we're going to provide CEDARS reporting guidance. Here's a link to the appendices for Appendix X. Remember when we first started chatting, Appendix X contains the valid values that you would use to submit, telling us how the student's determined as eligible. The OSPI Child Nutrition page has great information on direct certification, categorically eligible, or meal application, that free reduced meal application. Or if you go to the OSPI main website, click on the search bar, it's found in the upper right area, and type in any of these terms. And it drilled down, like I said, there's very robust, good information PDF, and they keep all of this information up to date. This link here will take you to the page. It'll say CEP Provision 2 page, but please remember, we talked about Family Income Survey needs to be used by those CEP and Provision 2 schools to determine eligibility for kids that aren't direct certified or categorically eligible, because it's not appropriate to give them the meal application. Family Income Survey is a smaller document that needs to be completed. It's also for any of you that don't have a meal program. Like I said, we have 2 or 3 districts that don't have meal programs or online ALE. You know, your Running Start kids, the Skill Center kids that are away from your school, so you don't have the opportunity to feed them. So it's a great form, good for broad use. If you want information about the CEP program, there's a link to this. And as Susan was asking about, most importantly, right now, if you want to see if today was the day that we're doing a final poll on this data, the initial 2022-23 poverty percentages are posted on the OSPI school apportionment page. Again, I talked about that March 31st is the day that the final submissions need to be in. So I would target any final cleanup be submitted to CEDARS by March 30th, because we pull that data for our fiscal department on April 1st. Now, to be honest, if April 1st is a Saturday or Sunday, it's going to happen that Monday. But that's the target to look at, is having all your data clean and accurate. And I do believe, Susan, you're 100% correct. They most likely will repost this initial draft information multiple times leading up through March 31st. So that's a great question and, you know, a good piece of information. So if you're curious about where you are, you want to go there. And did that answer everybody's questions? Okay. Just looking to make sure we are on top of things here. So that said, I'm going to take a quick pause. Do we have any questions about what we just chatted about? Oh, great. Liz is here. This is wonderful. So Leilani, could you unmute Liz for us, Liz Beechler?
Yeah,
Liz,
I'll do that
there
right
was,
now.
thank you so much. So Liz, there was a question from one of our participating LEAs that currently on the Family Income Survey page, the documents are only up to date for the 22-23 school year. It's been indicated that they like to send this form out with their enrollment packets or their enrollment verification packets for the next school year. So families can have that. Do you know when the forms will be available for the 23-24 school year so they can watch for those and have them included?
Yes, good question. And it's a common question. So the family income survey follows the same rules of the school meal application. So the income data needs to be for the applicable school year. So the family income surveys, like the school meal application, cannot be processed until after July 1st. So we release them usually late May, early July. But do note that it can't be processed until July 1st.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. So they did note that they knew July 1st was the date, but when it would be available for them to send out to families with the updated income information for 23-24. And I think I just heard you say late May, June-ish sometime. We'll have to
Yeah.
on the website.
Yeah, we usually have it before the end of the school year when not June 30th, but the end of when people are actually finishing up their instructional days. So we are in talks to maybe move that up. So we are going to look into doing that. But right now on our schedule, it's usually late May, early June.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I would like to offer to partner with you when that information is updated.
Okay.
We could include, I know you'll send it out via your resources, that we could send that information out through a student information monthly newsletter article also. So we kind of broaden our communication of that to the field.
That's a great idea, because I think whatever we can do to get that information to families and get that returned, I think will benefit everybody. So.
Okay, so there's a question from Irina. And by the way, everybody, Liz Beechler is the Director of Child Nutrition. I am so grateful to have her here with us. As I mentioned when we started this webinar, Liz, that I am speaking to CEDARS. I'm kind of the subject matter expert on CEDARS, how we get the data and everything, but that you are the subject matter expert for everything that's child nutrition. Not to throw you under the bus on that one, but
Well, Director of School Meals Programs, not
okay.
quite all of child nutrition, but school meals and free and reduced meal apps and that side. Yeah.
Awesome. So we have a question from Irina. Is there an opportunity to update the table on the income survey to reflect ranges for free meals rather than reduced? When these are entered and reported for students that qualify, they're reported as free, but the form should show reduced table.
So if you could read, I think I understand what you're saying. So Washington State pays the reduced paid price copay. So someone may qualify as free or reduced, but the state will cover the reduced. If you could send me a sample of what you're talking about, it's better if I visualize it. It would be helpful for me because we want it to be accurate. So our income guidelines are on our website, but if there's something we need to change, we'll definitely look and seeing, I mean, that's federally, that comes from USDA, our income guidelines.
Okay.
So we don't have a say in it. And we're just sharing that information on our forms and updating that information annually. They just reduced the income guidelines for 23-24. So we're in the process of getting that up on our website. Although I do tell you that when we put it up earlier, people get very confused.
Oh.
So we try to wait to closer to the end of the school year to put up next school year's income guidelines. But Irene, if you want to reach out to me and we can talk, or you can demonstrate what you're talking about, I can definitely look at that.
All right, thank you. And Irina asked if she could send an email. I included the child nutrition email at the end. Is that the appropriate email to use to get to you?
Yep, you can use a child nutrition, my name, or the school meals. It'll all get to me.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Always great to have an SME on board with us during these meetings. It gets very helpful. Okay, so we'll take a pause here. Does anybody else have any questions about the high poverty reporting? Well, the free reduced meal eligibility reporting to CEDARS or use of it, timelines or program specific. I don't want to, use everybody's time up here, but I just want to make sure that we don't have any questions before we move on. Okay. That said, we'll have plenty of time at the end if anybody needs it, but be happy to give you a little bit of time back in your day. And again, when this document goes out to the field, for those of you that registered for the webinar, these links will take you to all of the appropriate pages and provide you the information hopefully you're looking for. So this next session will go a little bit quicker probably. We're going to talk about reviewing data for end-of-year reporting. We just did a deep dive into how to look for information in the student tab on the reports for the free and reduced price meal eligibility information that's been submitted year to date for your students and for high poverty. Now we're going to look at some of the other data you send. And again, for folks that are new, the information we receive in CEDARS is very expansive, and we do our best to provide resources for folks to look at their data. That said, I recognize some of the reports that are named right now are not functioning 100%. Majority of them are. I'm going to try and mention the ones that aren't. We are working diligently with our AT department to make any updates, and we'll be moving forward as soon as we can, but I wanted to point them out. So when they are functioning, they're great resources. So our recommendations are, and again, we get information, all of the demographic information about students, about their military family affiliation, if they have a disability code, unaccompanied youth, if they're homeless, if they have an IEP, and then all the programs, the Title I, Part A programs, the LAP, the Learning Assistance Program, if the student has truancy petitions filed, if they have a restraint or isolation incident or exclusionary discipline, all of this information comes in, and we're trying hard to allow you to look at your information. But we recommend that you review your data periodically throughout the school year to ensure the data submitted is complete and accurate. And again, we're going to walk through real quickly the reports available. And when I say this, especially for those of you that might be a new CEDARS district administrator, I recognize all of the work you do. We recognize that you wear a lot of hats and you have a lot of responsibilities. What I'm hoping, when I'm sharing this data with you, is that if it is title or LAP or something, that you can access this information and share it with the program people in your district. Hopefully that's also not you. It might be. Share it and just say, hey, here's who we have year to date that's been identified as receiving these services or identified with this code or attribute. Can you confirm it's accurate? Because a lot of times when districts look at this data, they see students that might, should have come off the prior year, or maybe they should be on there but aren't in there or have inaccurate data. So these are just tools to help you look at this, because as we're racing towards the end of the 2022-23 school year, those end of year applications are going to open pretty soon, and we're going to be pulling your data for legislative reports. And again, it's not because we want to harp on you and make your lives harder. We really want you to have a good representation. So we touched on the dynamic attributes and programs report. We'll just do a quick flyby on those again. And sometimes what we find out is districts aren't aware that they can look at some of the district student attribute data submitted under a different tab, the high poverty schools, October enrollment. And I have to say, I do apologize. I recognize this one is not working as expected. This is one of our high priorities. The CTE, annual CTE student enrollment, participant or concentrator, the P210 withdrawal preview. Again, this report is working at about 80%. It will return values for all your students. When I say P210 withdrawal, this actually will allow you to look at withdrawal information for all of your students enrolled in grades K through 12. And you can select individual categories like negative leavers, a specific negative leaver. That would be a known dropout reason or an unknown reason like unconfirmed transfers. Students that were loaded as transfers, although not too many people use the report for that, graduates or students who are still listed as ongoing. If the report worked fully for students that had exited your district, it would also tell you if they become enrolled anywhere else in Washington, they would list that district. That's the one piece that's not appearing right now in that report. But again, we're trying very hard to work with our IT partners to do this. There's also a way to view your absence data. We know the regular attendance was a hot potato item this year on a report card under your SQSS data. There's a way for districts to go in and review this information. And records loaded, I'm really happy to report. For those of you that are aware of it, the records loaded report, and I'll show you how to look at this. It's a feature or report that allows a district to go in to select a file like restraint and isolation, exclusionary discipline, even attributes and programs, which would be a giant file to view. It'll allow you to see the full and complete records submitted for each student. So if some of the reports aren't working or we still haven't built a full report, this will allow you to do so. After our winter build is complete and promoted to production, which is on schedule for the 21st of this month, maybe the 22nd, but we're hoping it'll be pushed through the 21st. This report is going to be turned back on. And for those of you that have used that report over the years, I know that makes you happy. It makes my heart very happy. It's been a long time coming. So again, we talked about the attributes and programs report. We talked about accessing it for free and reduced meal participation, but this can be used if you have students with truancy petitions filed, any of them. You can access the pre-K funding source that you're submitting. You can look at any titled kids or LAP kids. There's a whole, you have students in a 21st century community learning center program, and you're supposed to be sending us data. You can look at that data. And under each of these reports, once you create them, again, business rules are displayed for every report we create. They're displayed below the search feature. Once you get to the student feature, let me go back here. On the student details, there's different downloads you can utilize. There's an Excel file, a PDF, and I believe it's a TXT format. It might be CSV, but I believe it's TXT format. So again, you can download this, and if you want to sort or filter, if you do it for the whole school, you're going to look at students in a particular program or truancy. You could parse it out for your individual schools. If you're doing this at the district level, share it with the folks in the know with this data. And youth re-engagement. Those of you that have a youth re-engagement program, please look at this and see if your kids are getting populated in there. We get this request all the time. If you identify students that are missing or have inaccurate data, or possibly shouldn't be there, they were active in the prior school year, you'll need to make these updates in your student information system, and on your next submission to CEDARS, the data will be cleaned up or corrected and added. So again, we just have a few more and then we'll be able to give you some time back. Talked about reports, the all student enrollment report. You can look at a range or a specific day. When folks were looking at their October enrollment, we recommended they do the first business day or first school day in October. It used to say October 1 enrollment, but folks along the way said, hey, October 1 might be a Sunday. So then we moved it to the first business or school day in October. I always recommend leaving your as of date as the day you're looking at the report. Again, unduplicated, you can just look at the kids that are primary, yes. Or if you want to look at all students in your school, just click on no in student details. I didn't change it from here. If you're interested in which students are identified as college-bound eligible students, you can create this report. Now I'm going to take a pause. I didn't include this information in this PowerPoint, but if you are the person in your district identified as having access to foster care data, in CEDARS, and it's a very specific role, but if you are that individual who is, and there may only be one in your district because it's a very secure role, this is where you would go and look at your foster care data. When you come in here, whoops, excuse me, there would be a foster care student button. I don't even have this access. It's such secure data. If you go into that report, it will only display students that are currently identified as in foster care in your district, and that's in foster care through DSHS. If you have students that are in foster care, say through tribal foster care or other means outside of DSHS, they will not be populated. This information is obtained through a secure agreement with DSHS. If you believe you're the person that should have this role in our EDS documents, reach out to me and I can provide you the information about what role you need assigned, or you can go to that CEDARS link that was provided earlier, go to the education data system link that's provided on that page on the left-hand side. You go down to the EDS user role matrix, and it will allow you to identify what that role is. And you can reach out to your district data security manager to have that role assigned. And thank you for allowing me to take a sidestep. I didn't put that screenshot because, again, it's not a freely eligible list of students for everybody. Christine, you raised your hand. Welcome. I'm sure Layla. Okay, we have two people raise their hand.
Okay, this is Christine.
Hi, Christine.
Hi,
Thank you for attending
I was
to
just
me.
gonna say, I do have that access and it shows underneath disability status over on the left, just so you know.
Oh, it does.
foster
It
care.
shows right here. Shows right here.
Yes, right there. Mhm.
Thank you. When we first created it, it
Yep.
actually showed right below here, but thank you for letting me know
Yep.
that's been updated. So you would see an additional link to click on right here. Appreciate that.
Yep.
And Christy, you had a question? Or somebody else did? Well, if we're all good, or you wanted to raise your hand and it didn't get answered, go ahead and let me know in the Q&A. Oops, let's see here. Yes, you can, Christy. Our intent is to send this out at the end to all of our registered participants. Leilani, do we have that capacity to do that? And I hate to put you on the spot. You can even type in the chat if you want to.
Oh, no, that's okay, Lisa. Yeah, I can work on getting this recording ADA compliant by the end of this week. And how does next week sound for sending it out?
That would be great. And I think they're asking if they
Okay.
can have a physical copy of the PowerPoint and not just of the recording.
Oh yeah, sure. I'll be sure to get this PowerPoint made ADA compliant by the end of this week.
Wonderful. Thanks, Christy. Will that meet your needs? And again, Leilani is just the power behind the scenes, but I always hate to put her on the spot. Okay. All right. Thank you all. Oops, one more question. Let's see what we have here. All right, perfect. We'll go through one more time here. The enrollment report. Oh, so districts, student attribute enrollment. And I'm always surprised, and I've been here since I was joke about since dinosaurs roamed, that this report I think is underutilized because we focus so much on the enrollment and attributes and programs and everything. If you go into reports, and again, remember, if you don't see this lower section when you first go in, especially if you're new to CEDARS, click on reports, you drop down, you navigate to enrollment. There's a feature, district student attribute enrollment report. Again, defaults to 2023. Select your district or an individual school. And over here's a list of all of the attributes that you can get the information for all of your students. I want to point out for folks that look at that grad requirement year, this does not tell you the cohort a student is in. And this is just a quick flyby. This is the grad requirement year submitted for your student in the current reporting school year. Hopefully they match up, but those of you that work with your data know that sometimes surprises happen, but it will tell you what's being reported for your student. They're foreign exchange or homeless. I also would encourage people that have students enrolled as a foreign exchange student that you know, or a homeless student attending what we call part-time, meaning there's a intent to homeschool on file, but they're attending for one class or multiple classes, or enrolling for the purpose of accessing Running Start or your skills center. I would encourage you to look at this to make sure we have this information. There's an element in District Student File B that tells us the student's a homeless student or a private school student attending through your district. And it's important to make sure we have that information on hand. And just my quick homage, remember, if a student's homeless or private school student enrolled to attend Running Start, you still need to have that intent to homeschool and or proof of private school and submit that. Right, Maria says the enrollment report is such a great thing for you to run a cross-check the information in your student information system. Thank you, Maria. I agree. A lot of times folks are surprised that the information isn't flowing through the way they think it is, and it gives us an opportunity to reach out to our partners in the district and ask for their assistance. So like I always point folks to that. We talked about the P210 withdrawal. We won't peek at that, wander around in there. So we talked about the infamous records loaded report. Again, under reports, depending on how wide your screen is, it may wrap around here. Records loaded. And again, I just for grins and giggles selected file Q. We have 20 files now that submit to CEDARS when this is reactivated sometime next week. For the 2023 school year, go in and select whichever file you want. This is a great place, for instance, to do a quick look at your restraint and isolation, lap student growth, which is your end of year information for your students or any of your records. And if selected, values associated are also displayed. What that means is an extended display. I always recommend using the extended because it gives you the complete information about each of the records submitted. And why this might be important, because I hear people say, hey, but there's a Tableau dashboard for that. Or isn't this populated to my end of year application? I'll look later. Well, yes, but number one, it's great to know ahead of time if your information's coming in. And this is where I'm going to take another pause where I encourage you to look at this information. If you think about it, if you're the person in your district who's tasked with reviewing the Tableau dashboard or an end of year application or something, a lot of times these applications open in the summer and the individuals, the teachers or program specialists or something, might be gone for the summer. And then you have to wait to confirm this information. So, providing this data out to them now to make sure it's accurate. So that burden on you or the person tasked with this isn't larger in the summer or early into the fall. So it just kind of helps you pre-prepare. And we apply specific business rules to Tableau dashboards, end of your applications, other data displays. This will allow you to see the full and complete data here when it might not be available, for instance, under any of these other reports available. The last one, again, just touching base in case folks came in late, this high poverty report, again, the data will be pulled after March 31st, depending on if April 1st is on a weekend or not, and looking at that information. So I touched on this earlier. If your data is identified as incorrect or incomplete, you first update that in your student information system and resubmit it to CEDARS. Again, if you need assistance with identifying where to make this information updates because you're new or it's been a year since you've had to look at it, reach out to your vendor support teams or staff to do that. Data that's submitted successfully to CEDARS, meaning it meets the business rules to load, will load into CEDARS the next day. If you aren't your CEDARS district administrator, but you have the report viewer access, what would happen sometimes, there's errors that occur in records. Nobody means for it to happen, but we're all human and it happens. If you think you submit, say, 50 students and you go in and there's only 48 populated, and again, you're not your CEDARS district administrator, you would make friends with that person and ask them to help you look at submission exceptions. So if records aren't accurately submitted and they don't meet the business rules, they get held up by a submission exception. And we can go deeper into that, or you can contact me if you need help walking through those. Again, CEDARS documents for business rules, valid values, and guidance are found here. And again, for assistance on how to capture this in your SIS, please reach out to either other team members in your district, or if they aren't available, I don't know, or you are the only person, and I recognize there's a lot of you that are the one and only, reach out to your vendor support team. So on that, we're going to ask us our final questions. Hopefully nobody's gone to sleep. And again, recognizing this is repeat information for a lot of you. I appreciate you being here today. I want to honor all of the work you do, but we do have a lot of new staff this year and wanted to make sure that you have the resources to help you do your job to the best of your ability. And I'll ask Liz right now, do you have any additional information or comments you'd like to add, Liz? So if we don't have any, right here's the contacts for assistance, technical assistance. Oops, hang on just a second. Okay, so technical assistance. This is a really important, before everybody leaves, I know we're going to be done here. Before you leave, it's really important to point something out. CEDARS customer support is not operating in the same role as they were in previous school years. They're currently offering technical assistance. They're a great group of folks. The new director has a new focus for them. They are more than happy to assist you with SSID splits and merges. If you have problems issuing SSIDs, you need district data security managers assigned or inactivated, you have problems with your passwords, assistance with actually getting your CEDARS submission in, that's who you want to contact. If you have questions regarding having problems looking at this data, can you help me diagnose my submission exceptions? I need to contact a program person, end of year, any of those other things that aren't technical, please contact me. And if I don't have the direct information, I promise I'll get you the assistance you need. So that's it. Just, we're trying to encourage our customer support, which really is now CEDARS technical support, to communicate that to the field. So if you've reached out to them and there's been a delay, you might want to forward those emails to Ask SI. And again, I will do my best. I'm the only Ask SI team, but you can also email me, lisa.ireland@k12.wa.us. They both come to me. So either way, you'll be able to contact me. But again, our technical assistance folks, they do a great job with that. They'd be happy to assist you. Child nutrition assistance. Again, this is a way to get to Liz Beechler for assistance. She's the director of student meals. I made her the director of all of child nutrition earlier. And for EDS user roles, again, contact your local district data security manager. But this directory takes you to where those user roles are assigned. And if you want access, your district data security manager has to assign those to you. I can't do that, even though I'd like to help you. Oh, this is a great question. So Liz, if you're still on, we have a question. Liz, can you let me know in the chat, or Rachel? Oh, perfect. So in the chat, this is a wonderful question from Alicia. Thank you for asking this. How do we go about assisting a family where the family is illiterate and unable to fill out the survey? And we want to honor these families and assist them. So how would you recommend they go about doing so?
Oh, that's a good question.
This is the first time someone's asked me that. Thinking about civil rights compliance and thinking about when someone has, in the context of maybe limited English proficiency, or someone that might need a sign language. I don't know the answer to this question, but I would think that hopefully there's someone through the school community, either in a resource office or a counselor's office or somewhere, that there is someone that can help them fill it out. You don't want the child to help. That's
Right.
an undue burden to the child in the family, but I would hope that there was other resources within the school that maybe might be able to assist.
So would you recommend, and I'm not, this is just a question. Would you recommend in that family income survey that goes out, there's a cover letter using that link for the family income survey, including information if you need assistance with completing this form, contact and have an email or a phone number? Because I'm assuming the student, if they're of an age to be reading, would probably be helping the family read this form and could tell them where to contact.
Yeah, and this just brings a bigger picture. I mean, this is just one of the many forms that a family would have to fill out for their child to receive public education. So I would throw it back to what is the school district doing, and when they need information other than the family income
Right.
survey,
So maybe
what
follow that same
resources are there?
protocol.
Follow that same protocol.
Okay, so for instance, if the family comes in and says, how about if I just tell you? I'll tell you what you need to know. Might be a good opportunity at that time, because I imagine families don't always want to indicate that their reading ability doesn't allow them to do this, or they're
Yeah.
ill. And this is another important question I have for you on the family income form and other forms that I'll ask in a moment. But so do your best to, so somebody says they've done that in the past, but the family doesn't respond. We know their circumstances. We know that they have need. So should they reach
Yeah.
out to your office maybe for assistance or support on that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is the first time anyone's ever asked me that. So I will do some research and see what is actually happening in schools, what the obligations are
Okay.
to help with that. So sorry, I don't have an answer right off the top of my head. I know that other people can help fill out meal applications as long as the person can sign off that it's accurate,
Or
right? That,
sign as a representative. We have
yeah,
other forms we do. Okay, Maria Rogan indicated in her district, she's now, I know, with an ESD, she said she used to read the documents to them. And Maria, can you respond? Would you then complete the form on behalf of the family? Okay. We'll see if somebody else has comments on that. One of the other questions that came up the other day, and I missed the opportunity to ask you, we have a very large influx of Ukrainian families or students that are without their families. And the ask is, in the translated documents that are available, could you also make a form in Ukrainian available for districts to provide?
we can. So USDA has our school meal applications, has over 60 languages translated on their website, and we do hyperlink to that on our website. But if there is definitely a need for us to translate, yes. I know that when we had the influx of Afghan refugees, we also tried to get that language translated. It was difficult to find a translating service that had that. But yes, if I would ask whoever asked that, though, can you send me an email? Because I need to demonstrate need. And maybe, Lisa, you can provide data on how many Ukrainian refugees are within our schools.
We don't collect refugee information or immigrant information ever. That's, we don't want to out families. Many families are afraid to indicate that. But if we have any districts participating that have students, I know yesterday, Washougal indicated they have a large number. I believe Vancouver and Battleground also indicated they have a large number. I don't know if any other participating districts today want to state their name, or they can email either Child Nutrition or myself, and I'd be happy to share it. And we are hearing around, I'm getting a lot of questions from many Federal Way and Highline that have a lot of students that are coming in that they are struggling to serve and are
Okay.
looking for assistance, because they obviously want to support these families
Yeah.
and integrating in and provide them with the assistance and resources they need. And that was a big ask in our Zoom meeting this week.
The other thing I do want to bring up is, schools have
Yep.
reached out to us about some of these families, and some of them do have a McKinney-Vento designation, so they're considered homeless or experiencing homelessness. And if that is the case, the McKinney-Vento Act says that meals are free for them, and we don't need documentation other than from the McKinney-Vento liaison. So their fees would be waived and their meals would be free if they do have that designation. So I want to throw that out too.
Right. And that actually was brought up yesterday and I love in our Zoom office hours, the districts support each other to such an amazing extent. And that was brought up. But we also there was a family that had, or several families that had moved from Ukraine to another country, and now we're in their district. And so were working, they had, were employed and didn't qualify under McKinney-Vento, their housing situation.
Okay.
Did not, but they still had a need for
That makes sense.
meal assistance and, being able to provide that.
Yeah.
So
thank you. That's really helpful for us to know.
absolutely. So again, if you are one of those districts, we'd love some supporting information. Email either Child Nutrition or myself, and I can pass that information on. So thank you for that input. I appreciate that, Liz. And it was a good audience right here today to bring that up. So we have Teresa asked a question. Could OSPI provide a sample of parent affidavit that would suffice for proof of name and birth date? Is this for specific to meal services, or is that in general for enrollment for your students? Again, probably related to students coming in either as McKinney-Vento or students coming in from out of country, displaced families. Teresa, is that just for any student that you're asking? And sorry to put you on the spot. Oh, and Susan raised her hand. New students in general. So Teresa, if you would send me an email on that, because that's really our Equity and Civil Rights Office that say you cannot require birth certificate or proof of name, the family signing something that verifies the student's age or their name would suffice. But if you would send me an email, and I think you may have in the last week or so, but email's been a little busy. If you have sent it, resend it to me, and I will see if we can get updated information that we can. Yeah, you emailed me, I do apologize. It's been, like I said, a little busy with customer support, not answering emails. It's been a little busy. I will look for that, but if you can just resend it and raise it to the top of the pile, that would be well appreciated, and I will do my best to get an answer for you. So thank you. Okay, do we have any other questions for Liz right now? I don't want to put you on the spot, but if we have any other specific questions, otherwise, I think you can get almost, 15 minutes back in your day, which is great. So I'm going through this information. It looks like we've answered all the questions. So I'll give it about another minute. I will stay on, but if you don't have any questions, thank you again so much for being with us today. Appreciate you very much. Hopefully you found value in the information presented today. And my shameless plug, if you ever want us to address specific topics in a statewide that you think would be of value to the field, please feel free to let me know. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Hope the rest of your afternoon is great. And Liz, thank you so much for being willing to take time and join us and help out.
Yeah, anytime. So thanks everyone for the thoughtful questions. Feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting and very intuitive and I felt bad that we had not yet thought about the Ukrainian students. They have a lot of barriers. So if we can help with that transition, would be awesome. Yeah.
I definitely agree. So stay tuned.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
I'm going to hop off. Take care.
Yep, take care. Thank you. All right, we'll give it about 1 more minute and then we will end the webinar. And I believe we answered everybody's questions. I'm just checking real quick. All right, we can probably stop the recording.